Late at night, I posted a post asking for help. My husband often dreams of a girl. He said he fell in love with the girl in the dream. He wants to divorce me. How can I win his heart back? The post quickly became a little popular. Your husband is going to have a girlfriend. You are still trying to keep him? How cheap. I replied, but he gives me 500,000 yuan every month. The comment area exploded. Sister, I am willing to marry your husband. Even if he is a concubine. I am willing. The post suddenly received a large number of replies under the absolute popularity. Some netizens actually gave me advice. Men fall in love with someone else. It's nothing more than a little novelty. The author of the post, you should reflect on this. Haven't you let him have that kind of novelty for a long time? I hurriedly asked, I don't understand. Can you elaborate? After a few back and forths, I added the netizen on WeChat. D me 50 yuan. I will send you something new. She said. 50 yuan? What is that money? I added 2 more zeros to her bill and passed it on. There will be a thank you fee if the job is done. Thank you for your hard work, strategist. Netizen, there was a loud bang in the sky. The old slave made a brilliant appearance. Then, the speed of replying to the message was full of passion. First, you have to, then, props are essential, this link, and this. As a result, when the courier arrived, I was holding a few pieces of strange-shaped fabrics and fell into deep thought. Jiang Yan hadn't been home for several days. A few days ago, he suddenly told me something like, I often dream of a girl and I fell in love with the girl in my dream. I thought he was sick. But his change of attitude, coupled with the rumors from netizens, made me gradually anxious. When I heard the door open, I quickly wrapped myself in the quilt, leaving only my eyes exposed. Liang Sui Sui? I turned off the power switch. Jiang Yan shouted for a long time with the light of his mobile phone. Finally, he stood at the door of the bedroom and was a little speechless. What are you doing? I was so nervous that I didn't move or say anything. He had a question mark on his face and pulled the quilt off me. Liang Sui Sui, you know, I don't have time to play boring games with you. I grabbed the quilt tightly and he pulled it open a corner. The light was dim, but I still saw his eyes wide open. He had an overly good-looking face, but because of the momentary shock, the corners of his mouth twitched a little. Ahem. I was secretly happy in my heart. It turned out to be really useful. So I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, lifted the quilt and rushed towards him. Later, Jiang Yan described that my posture at that time was not like I was here to seduce him. But I was here to assassinate him. We rolled to the ground together, and he subconsciously hugged me into his arms. I took the opportunity to hug him tightly, and said in a pinched voice, Husband, I will accompany you no matter what you want to do. His breathing was disordered. Feeling that it was time, I pouted and moved closer to him. Suddenly, a hand pressed against my face. Jiang Yan gnashed his teeth. No matter who you are, get off Liang Sui Sui. Me? Question mark. Jiang Yan, are you not capable? He? Question mark. At the end of the farce, Jiang Yan wrapped me up in the quilt again and turned away. Before leaving, he looked me over with contempt. She doesn't have 2 tails of flesh on her chest. This kind of thing doesn't suit you. He slammed the door and left. I was so angry that I threw a series of punches at the air. Plan A failed. When I was discussing Plan B with my online friends, an uninvited guest suddenly came to my house. The strange woman and I stared at each other. I got jealous first. Because this woman is really pretty and, as a woman, why is she so magnificent while I am so smooth? As soon as Jiang Yan came in, the strange woman quickly took his hand. Jiang Yan, she looks so fierce. If I'm not mistaken, is she trying to be close to my husband in front of me? Jiang Yan pulled me into the bedroom and told me calmly, her name is Wang Minglu. I felt familiar with her the first time I saw her. She is the girl in my dream. Liang Sui Sui, let's get a divorce. You know I don't love you. It's meaningless for you to do anything fancy. I raised my hand to slap him. But I stopped halfway. He shrugged indifferently. Money? House? What do you want? Just think of it as my apology to you. Yes, I almost forgot. In his heart, we were tied together by our parents. There was no emotional foundation at all. I promised him that I would let him go as long as he found true love in the future. The premise was that I would give me 500,000 yuan every month. 500,000 yuan was just a drop in the bucket for him. Because I know him, he won't fall in love with someone easily. I didn't expect that he would come up with such a ridiculous reason for divorce a year later. It was so insulting. I got so angry that I got up in the middle of the night and typed. My husband said he found the girl of his dreams and brought her home to force me to divorce. What should I do? The comment area quickly became agitated. No, I can't stand this. What's so great about having a few stinky money? He'd better be more handsome than Daniel Wu. I was very embarrassed, but he promised to give me a building. The netizen who was still typing suddenly braked. Take a step back and say that you are not wrong? Me? ? He just made a mistake that all men would make. It's hard to choose between a building and a living god of wealth. After a long time, I found a more useful comment from many floors. You should reflect on whether you are not virtuous enough or considerate enough. My eyes lit up and I thought about it carefully. The next day, I secretly invited the chef to come home to cook. As soon as the chef left, I tied my apron and pretended to clean up the kitchen. Jiang Yan wanted to ignore me when he came in. But he couldn't help asking, "Did you cook this?" I kindly helped him take off his coat. My husband has worked hard. It's my duty to do this. He looked at me suspiciously. After a brief surprise, a hint of mockery appeared in his eyes. Then he pointed at the soup on the table and asked me, "What's in it?" My eyebrows jumped. Oops. I don't recognize many of the ingredients. Is there soup? Jiang Yan put one hand in his pocket and poked my head hard with the other hand. Liang Sui Sui, you can't even cut a carrot. You should pretend to be decent. Don't waste your time. When I'm done with these few days, we'll talk about divorce. In the end, I was still the only one who ate the whole table of dishes in a huff. I thought he thought I wasn't careful enough, so he called the chef and taught me a few dishes. When Jiang Yan stayed up late to work overtime at the company, I personally made supper and sent it to him. People in the company used to see me. I don't know what happened today. I always felt someone was talking about me behind my back. Jiang Yan was working. I waited obediently. After he signed the last document, he looked up and finally saw me. I took small steps and smiled as I took out the bowls and chopsticks and set them aside. Here, I really made it myself this time. You always stay up late. There are astragalus and lotus seeds in it. I thought he would be somewhat moved by me. But he just interrupted me indifferently. Liang Sui Sui, haven't I made it clear enough? I pretended not to understand and handed him a bowl of soup. Just drink a sip, okay? He lowered his eyes, and his eyes fell on my hand. Seeing that I had a band-aid on my hand and a burn, he was slightly stunned. How did you get your hand hurt? Jiang Yan's tone was a little cold. I put the bowl in front of him and pursed my lips. I didn't lie to you this time, I made it myself. Are you caring about me? He looked away. I don't care about you, I just think you're stupid. Under my eager gaze, he finally picked up the bowl. At the same time, someone suddenly broke in. Jiang Yan, my mother's soup. Wang. Meng. Lu. She actually dared to come back. Jiang Yan's tone became gentle when she saw her. It's so late, didn't I ask you to go home? I took a deep breath and couldn't suppress the anger in my heart. Wang Minglu smiled playfully, Miss Liang is here too. I didn't know you were Jiang Yan's wife last time. I'm so sorry. Thanks to Jiang Yan for taking care of me in the company, Miss Liang, don't misunderstand. Good guy. It turns out that she was already placed in the company. I really doubt Jiang Yan's taste. Will all domineering CEOs fall in love with pretentious little white flowers in the end? I stared at her with a smile. My husband is your immediate superior. You always call him Jiang Yan. So it's popular to call the boss by his name now? The little white flower heard the words and her eyes were red. That's not what I meant. Liang Sui Sui. As expected, Jiang Yan yelled at me. I couldn't stand it any longer. I snatched the box from Wang Minglu's hand and threw it out. The soup spilled all over the floor. We haven't divorced yet. People who don't know would think you two are a couple. How is it that cheating during marriage is glorious? And you, a bitch, are you pretending to be wronged? Jiang Yan, you just rely on me. The last two words were still not uttered. Jiang Yan carried me up until we went downstairs and threw me in the car. The divorce agreement was placed in front of me. Liang Sui Sui, let's get a divorce. I sneered, are you serious? To this day, I think what he said about falling in love with the girl in his dream was a fabrication. The Jiang Yan in my memory is not this kind of person. At least, not so naive. But his eyes at this moment were too serious. So serious that I began to doubt myself. In the closed car, it was so quiet that we could hear each other's breathing. Jiang Yan put his hands on the steering wheel and lowered his head. When I woke up from the hospital before, it seemed like something was missing in my mind. I married you in a daze. Until recently, I had a strange dream again and again. I fell in love with a girl in the dream. That feeling was something new and I had never experienced before. I felt like it was reminding me of something. Until I met Wang Minglu. She could give me this feeling. Do you understand? Liang Sui Sui. I believe in my intuition. You won't make things difficult for me, right? You said that if I have someone I really like, our marriage will end. No one loves each other anyway. I'll talk to my parents. At most, it's all my fault. These words were like a basin of cold water pouring over me from head to toe. He told me openly that he really fell in love with someone else. No matter what I tried, it couldn't compare to the first time he saw Wang Minglu. I couldn't help laughing. I laughed so hard that tears came out. But Jiang Yan, you never realized that it might not be a dream. The girl you fell in love with in your dream was not Wang Minglu. Jiang Yan and I divorced. The whole process was silent and smooth. When we came out, Jiang Yan said he would take me home. I knew that this home was not the home between him and me. I sniffed and stood still. Bye, Jiang Yan. Although I don't want to admit it, Wang Minglu is indeed more attractive than me. A barely perceptible smile flashed in his eyes. Are you so happy to divorce me? I ran to him and grabbed his hand and bit it. He pushed my head. Liang Sui Sui, you are a dog. I looked up at him and mist accumulated in my eyes. There was a person who always loved to tease me. I would bite him when I was angry. At that time, his tone was full of pampering. He touched my head and said, Sui Sui, are you a dog? Jiang Yan was stunned and thought I was going to cry. What? What are you doing? You bit someone and you're crying? I pushed him away with all my strength and forced out a smile that was uglier than crying. Cry your mother. I'm so happy. I finally don't have to serve you anymore. You have a bad temper, a bad face, and a bad mouth. Wang Minglu is unlucky that you've chosen her. I scolded him. He rarely retorted. He just stared at me quietly. Before tears fell, I turned and left. He called my name, Hey Liang Sui Sui. I didn't stop. So I didn't hear what he said later. There are still endless replies to the posts online. OP. Why hasn't the follow-up come yet? Meng Man didn't really run away with another woman, did he? I'm worried for the OP. There is a netizen named Bored. He is really bored. He actually found out my posts from many years ago. I was lost in thought as I stared at the old photos on the screen. Found a photo the OP posted a few years ago. Are the couple in the photo the OP and her husband? Those photos were taken at a temple on the mountain. The girl and the boy held hands tightly. The girl closed her eyes and prayed. The boy secretly turned on the camera. His eyes were full of love. On the wishing tree, the wind chimes rang. There were a few blurry words engraved on the small wooden sign. Netizens couldn't see clearly. Only I knew. It turns out that they have been together for a long time. So we became part of this couple's play? I thought about it and posted a message to explain. We're divorced already. There's nothing to share. I earned a building. I didn't lose anything. As a result, more and more people were eating the melon. So it's true love? Really? Really? Upstairs. Love or not is useless. Love doesn't affect a man's change of heart. Sure enough. People's hearts are always changing. Only money in hand won't betray you. Later. I deleted all the posts. Just like someone. In the end, all traces were cleared. I couldn't sleep all night. I called my best friend Xiaoyuan. Yeah. We're divorced. I got a building. Ha ha ha. I'm so happy that I can't sleep when I think about living a life of lying down and collecting rent for the rest of my life. Xiaoyuan came to see me. According to her. Although I was disheveled, I was excited. I looked like a crazy person in the cold palace. I invited her to be my landlord. But she asked me, "Are you really happy?" I laughed and cried. What do you think about Wang Minglu? She has 2 tails of flesh on her chest. How is she better than me? Jiang Yan is just a stupid ass. By the way, he gets headaches easily at night. I'm going to tell Wang Minglu to give him a massage. After saying this, I was stunned again. Xiaoyuan sighed and took my hand and comforted me softly. Cry if you want to. After crying, we'll let it go. At most, you can treat me as him and scold him harshly. I pursed my lips and tears fell instantly. But Xiaoyuan, I can't blame him. I prayed to God since the day he almost died to save me from the fire. No matter what Jiang Yan becomes, no matter where he goes, Liang Sui Sui will always be by his side. The wooden plaque on the wishing tree is engraved with our names. Year after year. Jiang Yan and I didn't believe in these things before. But when we looked at each other across the incense sticks, I asked him what he was praying for. He said, I pray to marry the person in front of me and have no regrets in my life. It was an ordinary morning, a slightly corny sentence. In my heart, it surpassed all the romantic fantasies I had when I was a girl. Originally, we were almost together forever. But later, I was trapped in a sudden fire. I also experienced a fire when I was a child and saw dead people with my own eyes. Since then, I have been extremely afraid of fires. The flames hit me, and I was instantly powerless. The firefighting equipment failed and my ears were filled with desperate screams. In despair, I was glad. I was glad that Jiang Yan was not there. But this stupid donkey rushed in like crazy. Almost the whole building could hear his screams. Liang Sui Sui. Where are you? Liang. Sui. Sui. Fuck, make a sound. I was awakened by his noise and finally saw his figure across the fire. He hugged me and used his body to shield me tightly. He said, don't be afraid, Sui Sui. Don't faint. He said, I'm here. I'll take you away. I can't remember how we got out later. I only remember that when I opened my eyes, we were all in the ambulance. And Jiang Yan, his face was bloodless. The back of his head and shoulders were stained with blood. The doctor said that he was seriously injured in the back of his head by the glass. He was so injured that he was able to bring me out. He risked half his life. He opened his eyes and was as weak as a breeze. He could drift away at any time. He said to me, Sui Sui, I won't die. I haven't married you yet. His hand was raised and fell again. I saw his pupils dilate. I saw his heart rate become a straight line. I heard the sound of everything slow down at that moment. Every minute and every second outside the operating room, I was praying to God. If God doesn't care, I will marry him regardless of life or death. He passed through the gates of hell. When he opened his eyes again, I saw myself crying in his eyes. After a brief moment of confusion, he asked me, "Who are you?" He said he wanted to marry me. He asked me who I was again. After Jiang Yan suffered a serious brain injury, his memory stopped at 2 years ago. And the memories he lost in the past 2 years just happened to be all about my existence. Not only that, his body is at risk of extremely dangerous complications at any time. The doctor told us to let nature take its course and never stimulate him to recall. So later, everything about me was cleared from his world. Even if I tried my best to marry him, he no longer loved me. Until one day, he suddenly told me. He dreamed of a girl. He fell in love with the girl in his dream. When he talked about that dream, my heart almost jumped out. There was a voice in my head that kept shouting, "Tell him. There is no such thing as a dream." From the beginning to the end, that person was me. But I couldn't say it. I couldn't do anything that might stimulate and hurt him. This situation is very strange. I asked the doctor, but I didn't get a clear explanation. I could only watch him fall in love with someone else with his dream about me. Then I let him go as agreed. If there is no solution between us, then I just want him to be safe. After staying up all night, I had a high fever and felt dizzy. In a fuzzy state, I grabbed my phone and called Jiang Yan. "Listen, you big ass. There is a book of massage techniques on the bedside. Let Wang Minglu learn it. Don't let me kill you with a headache. I will be a landlady in the future. I will be busy collecting money every day when I open my eyes. I am so happy. You, take good care of yourself. I don't blame you. I don't blame you for your strange and wary eyes at any time. I don't blame you for forgetting me and falling in love with someone else.